This is David Ross, and welcome once again to the Raor podcast. The subject of today's podcast will be why do we do martial arts as sort of a general thing, and the future, more specifically, of Chinese martial arts, at least is how I envision it, and some issues going forward. So I'm still teaching. I know it's during the pandemic. We've changed the way we teach and where we're teaching and everything, but I had someone come down. It was their second class, and afterwards we chatted with them. This happens very frequently. First people come down. First class, they're sort of just nervous and everything. Second class, they survive and, relax a little bit more, and you have a chat. And one of the things that came up was, well, why do we do martial arts? Or because I think her initial question was, what's the best martial art to do? Or, what martial art should I do for self-defense kind of thing? And my answer was, since I don't believe there's a best martial art, obviously, the teacher means a lot, and the approach means a lot. But the answer that I gave her is not the first thing we're going to say, but I'll get back to that. But it made me ponder, why do we do martial arts? What are the advantages of doing martial arts? Why should I tell you to do martial arts? Why, if you're running a school, should you say to people, join my school and do martial arts? Well, I've observed many times before, and it's true. I think they said the endocrine system, like our body is basically the same as it was when we were cavemen. And so we have this innate impulse, for example, for violence. And in a civilized society, I think that's what we live in, though I'm not sure sometimes day to day, you need an outlet for this. You need to move, and to exert your aggression in a positive way. You also need to move. Another observation I've made is that, for example, I compare my mother's parents, so my maternal grandparents, didn't necessarily have the healthiest diet, but and my grandfather on my mother's side smoked and everything, but they all lived to be pretty old. And it's because they were very, very active, and, increasingly we're not active, so doing martial arts makes you move. So that's one thing, is just we're sort of innately attracted to martial arts because we have a need deep down inside to exert our violent or our aggressive tendencies, and this is a way to do it in a positive way. And also we're just, designed to be moving. We're designed to be either gatherers or hunters, or hunters and gatherers. And what we do doesn't fulfill those sort of intrinsic needs. Now, the answer that I gave to the student, because I didn't want to, sound too philosophical about it. Why do we do martial arts? Well, there's a couple of reasons. First, I would argue body awareness. I would, in fact, argue that everything I do is not necessarily martial arts, not particular style, but body awareness. Being aware of your body, how it moves, and learning how to control how it moves. This includes also, maintaining your flexibility, your balance, increasing your hand-eye coordination. Martial arts creates something that I would call foot-eye coordination, which doesn't normally exist. This is the reason, they tell old people to do Tai Chi, not because there's any magic in Tai Chi, but rather it teaches you about balance and everything. So body awareness is, like I said, it's not just being aware about your body, but, maintaining its flexibility, its balance, coordination, keeping you active. Body awareness helps us in all kinds of activities. It helps promote our health. So, this is probably one of the most important things. Next, basic. She asked me about self-defense, and I said that the difference, what self-defense really is, and this is going to go into what I'm going to talk about in the second half of this. Self-defense is not technique. As soon as it becomes physical violence, it's all martial arts. It's, all techniques that you learn. Self-defense is about awareness of your surroundings, avoidance, de-escalation, and finally, and I would argue most importantly, about being aware of what your legal rights are as far as when physical violence breaks out. But technique-wise, learning how to punch someone in the face, knee them, kick them, elbow them. In addition to being excellent exercise, if you ever have to defend yourself, that's what you're going to need to do. And that's why I argue that, my quote-unquote fitness kickboxing program, is just the base of everything else that I do. Because in addition to giving you a great workout that stays interesting all the time, it teaches you how to hit people. Now, it doesn't mean you have to be a violent person. It doesn't mean you have to be a fighter. But I guarantee you, if you have to defend yourself, being able to punch somebody in the face is an important skill. So, body awareness, being able to punch somebody. Another reason to do it, stress release, especially now, right? Everybody's stressed out because of the pandemic. Martial arts gives you an appropriate way, and this is sort of related to the Paleolithic man comment that I was making earlier. Gives you a good outlet for that aggression and a good outlet for that stress. So, body awareness, self-defense, stress reduction. Fourth and final reason that we do martial arts is that it gives us important life lessons. Those life lessons are, when students start, they look at something and they go, that's hard, I'm never going to be able to do it. And then they learn they can do it. Again, people's minds are usually their own worst enemies. When we do martial arts, we learn that we can do things that we didn't think were possible. And so that's a wonderful lesson to learn, because it instills confidence for people that don't have confidence. It makes people feel better about themselves. It's one of the most important things that we can learn in martial arts. So we have very good reasons why we should be doing martial arts that I just discussed. But let's talk about what are the obstacles. Why isn't everyone doing this? If it's, intrinsically something that our body needs and wants, if there are a lot of very valid reasons why to do it, what's standing away? Well, modern lifestyle is the argument, I guess, in one sense. Just like I said, we're not moving around a lot anymore, so we need exercise. But, our time is so precious now. We work jobs, we have families, we have commutes, we have, other commitments to, we have a primary family and our secondary family and these kind of things. Time is a big obstacle. I always say that, people from certainly before my generation and people in my generation, I know that, spent large amounts of time practicing. I joke about, how much time I spent practicing, literally 6 days a week. People just don't do that, and I'm talking about not like an hour, I'm talking about hours every day. These are the people that became martial arts instructors also, but I knew people that didn't become martial arts instructors, but for a good part of their life were spending considerable amount of time doing martial arts. It's hard, and not everybody's going to be able to do that. And if, as a martial arts instructor, you don't recognize this is going to be a challenge. When people want to do business consulting, I say, well, you have to realize this because this is a large part of your group. But even if you're not interested in doing it as a business, just if you're interested in passing on knowledge and passing on something of value, as much as I do this professionally, obviously, I make a living doing it, but I'm also interested in passing on knowledge and helping people, believe it or not. People think that those are mutually exclusive things, but they're not. What is the best way to do this? So you have to think let's be modern about it. Let's realize that we're going to have students that sometimes may show up only 1 hour a week, which is not ideal. You have people that disappear and come back. But even if you have a good student that trains 2 or 3 times a week, an hour each time, they're talking about 2 or 3 hours a week, which, 2 or 3 hours used to be one day out of several days. And so this is going to be our biggest challenge, obviously. And, this is what my initial reaction was, to drop a lot of the things associated with traditional and focus more on skills. This would be my argument against forms. One of my arguments against forms. Forms can theoretically teach you how to replicate movement and therefore, teaches that body awareness I was talking about earlier. But for a lot of people at the beginning especially, they become so obsessed with just learning how to go through the movement and remembering the sequences. I think partner work gets you faster results. And again, it's also about, that constant tension between can't organize truth and expedient means. It's also about, like, people's minds are their own worst enemies. One, they think things are too hard, and so they're they don't want to do it. Oh, it's too hard. I'll never be able to do that. And second, it's they lose attention really quickly. And I think there's an argument to be made that more recent generations have had shorter attention spans and smaller thresholds, for when they get satisfaction. If they don't get immediate satisfaction, they're turned off by things. And that's why I think, like doing something, like I said, like I always think my fitness kickboxing is, the gateway to other training. Because people, it's fun. They can learn some technique really quickly. They can see results really quickly. It keeps their interest. And then later on, and I've said this, I've had people even recently that I started off in kickboxing and I started showing them the Kung Fu stuff, which is the really, really complicated stuff. And I said, if I had started off showing you this, you wouldn't have stayed. You would have been turned off. But, I wet your beak, so to speak, and even when you get frustrated with the Kung Fu stuff, you can always go back to the kickboxing classes. This is expedient means, again, it's something that I talk about all the time. So, organizing your material, I would say partner work. And again, remember that one of the most important things is learning how to punch somebody in the face, knee, and throw kicks for self-defense. Even if you're not doing a self-defense class, even if you're doing it, like I said, in a quote-unquote fitness class environment, this is what you want to teach people. And again, maybe the argument is that if people have time and the interest, then you can later teach them forms. I'm going to get into this with other things also. But I think the first thing is to teach people partner work. And again, that doesn't even mean fighting partner work, because I do a fitness class with partner work. But to get people doing something that they can pick up pretty quickly, that is enjoyable. So again, people will very quickly be turned off by not being able to do something. So you have to present it in a way that they're not going to get turned off. You have to present it in a way that keeps their interest. Then later on, you can teach them other things. So I would say first, partner work. Some self-defense. And again, I already said from my point of view, self-defense is awareness. I liked Mark Tripp's 4 observations, which is, you stay away from places and situations and locations that are going to draw you into danger, and where you may be uncertain what your liabilities are. Being aware if you're in a bad neighborhood, avoiding bad neighborhoods, avoiding bad situations, avoiding drugs and people that do them or sell them, especially not doing things that are going to get somebody looking for you that has got a grudge. Even avoiding like a lot of drinking, because you know how many arguments people get into stupid arguments because they're drunk, and then the problem is also if you get into that stupid argument, you push somebody and they fall down and they hit their head and they die. Well, then you're up on manslaughter charges. So self-defense is about awareness. Then, of course, the next part of that, which is related to what I just said, which is the de-escalation, was if there's a possibility of getting out of things, do that. Avoidance, then de-escalation. This is also related to a thing that used to be talked about a lot, the interviewing, which is that some people, when they're looking to attack you, to assault you, to rob you, they're interviewing you, and the way you conduct yourself, it's a bad interview. It's the opposite of when you go to a job interview and you want to do a good interview where they hire you. You don't want to be hired for the assault. You want to be, rejected, and for them to move on to the next person. Then the legal boundaries. I mean, I always talk about this very basic thing, which is I teach people first a defensive stance. And I've had women tell me it's the most valuable thing they've ever learned in martial arts. It is basically a fighting stance with your hands up, though, and constantly repeating, I don't want a problem. I don't want trouble. Please stop. And if you interview law enforcement people, what you'll find out is that the thing that witnesses are reliable for is being unreliable. So you can have your hands up and really be in a fighting stance, but your open hands, and saying these things and saying them in a very directed assertive, confident way. And it'll sound like your hands are up going, please, please, I don't want any problems. Please stop. Please, your hands up. Therefore, you did not initiate the aggression, which is very important from a legal point of view. Also, if you have your front hand in front of you slightly extended, that is your barrier. In other words, as long as they stay on the other side of that hand, I tell women this all the time, they can say as many offensive, abusive things as they want, but that is not an imminent threat. When they approach that hand, and certainly when they pass that hand, if you have to palm them in the face, gouge their eyes, knee them in the groin, elbow them in the face, stomp on a shin or an instep, that's an imminent threat, and you have an affirmative legal right to defend yourself. So it's very important. So first, like I said, we learn technique, partner work, stuff they can see immediately. Then I would say you need self-defense. Along with this is fitness, but when we talk about Chinese martial arts in particular, we're talking about stuff like sometimes like Qigong, and then especially like what they call the iron skills. Now, a lot of martial arts people, more modern martial arts people, discount this kind of stuff. And I would certainly say that if you couch it in all this, Qi language, I talk about how modern yoga gave up on the subtle body idea, which is these, chakras and astral bodies and stuff like that, and just started approaching it, from modern science and modern physiology and modern anatomy, and that was the big breakthrough in yoga. I would say that Kung Fu people Chinese martial arts people need to do the same thing, which is get beyond that. But the exercises themselves have value. I know they have value anecdotally. I've said this before, right? Because I do the exercises and I know it has good effect. I can't explain it. I have a training brother that is a brilliant physical therapist. I've mentioned it before, who can explain it. And there should be people coming along. I'm not them. I don't muck around in things I don't know about and I don't claim to know about. Somebody should come around at some point and start explaining why these things work, from an anatomical and physiological and scientific point of view. I'm not the person to do that, but I'm here to tell you that, and then you got to balance it out. Like, you can offer it as a separate program, and certainly from a business point of view, that's positive. And if people have time to do the classes, you just have to remember, though, that you're not going to do a 2-hour class. You're going to do an hour class, and when I say an hour class, you're really going to do 50 to 55 minutes. So if you do 30 minutes of Qigong at the beginning, you're not going to have time to do that other stuff that I was talking about. And you'll turn a lot of people off. But it could be there in the program. It should be in there in the program. But again, it's like I guess it's like the analogy of the pool, which is that it has a wading, like a little shallow, and then you can go deeper, and then you go deeper, and then there's like the far side with the diving. Chinese martial arts should be like that, and people will wade their way into the pool. And some people obviously won't wade very deep. Some people will swim but not dive, and some people will be jackknifing into the water. But you need stuff that they can learn they can see the application of quickly, that they enjoy doing, they can see the results of. You need to give them some basic self-defense training. I believe that there is a place in modern martial arts for Qigong and the physical kind of training stuff we did. And related to that also, I guess I should talk about the Shenfa, Sanfa body method. And I'm sort of undecided on this myself, because really it's so foundational, it's so basic. But again, like what I usually do is I cheat and I use expedient means, and I don't show them the entire body method at the very beginning, but I have to obviously start with some body method. And so, for example, in my fitness classes, left, right, hips and shoulders, to turn to teach the wheeling body thing without going into all the elaborate theory of wheeling body. But what's interesting about Shenfa, which is, so integral to our traditional Chinese martial arts practices, is that it is not anachronistic, it is not outdated. It is something that even professional MMA people would benefit from. It's just finding that way to introduce it. And again, not couching it in obscure, anachronistic terminology. But Shenfa, again, it's really the basis of everything, because you're learning how to body awareness, You're learning how to generate power, and my argument would be also that learning how to generate power is the best thing for physical fitness. Hitting gloves, hitting pads, hitting bags is how you get fit. Certainly, not in my experience, but anecdotally, all around the martial arts industry, people will tell you that. And Shenfa is the secret to doing that. It's something that we need to keep, but we have to figure out how to introduce it, when we introduce it, how we introduce it. Like I said, I think I would still say the best way to do it is with expedient means, sort of breaking it up in pieces, and along the way introducing different pieces of it, as opposed to what we used to traditionally, which is to make people do all the Shenfa stuff first before we started showing them technique, because that's not going to work. Remember the short attention span of most people. Iron skills, again, very important stuff, but realistically, some people won't get around to it. Some people won't want to do it, but there's a place for it. I would argue that you could build a pretty successful school offering these sort of things as parallel programs. What I do, call it fitness kickboxing, but it's just like, Gabe One Gong, basic training. Fitness stuff being, like Sun Shenfa and the Qigong stuff. And at the very high level of that being the iron body, the iron skills stuff in there. Self-defense training for people that, there are a lot of people that think they don't want to do martial arts, they just want to do self-defense training. And again, what happens when you do self-defense training, basically, as I said, is you're first doing all that awareness, de-escalation, and legality stuff, and then you're doing technique, which then becomes martial arts stuff. But shh, don't tell them that, because that's the expedient means. Weapons. Well, again, I don't know if we need every single... I learned so many weird weapons with Shante-san. I learned weird weapons with other teachers. There's so many different weapon sets. But there's a lot to be said for learning the basic force, staff and staff and do, the broadsword or the saber, the spear and the jian, the straight sword. But again, some people are going to be interested, some people are going to be not. But I think there's a place to keep it. But ironically, I also say let's not keep it in forms. Let's keep it in teaching people the movements and the applications, and giving the drills like Scott does that, the cutting with the jian to make sure you're cutting correctly. And that's, again, it's perfect because people see the application, they see the use of it, and they can see the results really quickly. That's the problem with a lot of Chinese martial stuff. It's couched in this idea that in 10 or 20 years you'll see the results. It sounds really cool, but in practice, it's not what you need to do with people. You're turning off your potential audience, and you won't keep them, especially in this age when people want quick satisfaction. Now, sparring, competition. I've argued. I even put a video up again, kind of reposted it, about how people that do competitive fighting, it's really a self-discovery. It's really what physical education is supposed to be about. But obviously, a lot of people are not going to want to do that. But it should be there. It should be there in some form. And sparring should be there in some form. But you can sort of also, expedient means you ease into it with drills. This is why chi sao, push hands, these kind of things, they're not obsolete. I think they're overstressed and they're misrepresented. But they're great ways to get people to do some kind of contact work, and gradually lead them in. Like I say, sometimes we do just grappling, without even throwing each other, but just moving around and sticking and pummeling and working for unbalances without necessarily slamming each other. Because remember, the one downside to judo that's kept it from growing specifically in the United States, I would say, is people don't like being picked up and thrown on their heads, to put it bluntly. We do sparring, and I've put up videos of it. It's not as hard as people think it is. Even when it's guys that, then go and fight really hard. And, I point out Thailand as the model of that. They fight insanely hard, but they train almost like, they're having fun. There's a lot to be said for Chinese martial arts, but like I said, it's how we present it, and we have to, get rid of that stuff And this is ironic because I can tell you from the martial arts historical perspective again, I wrote that book. We're still trying to get rid of the stuff that, was, developed around the time of the Boxer Rebellion, Boxer Uprising, and still trying to get rid of it. The progressives were complaining about, 100 years ago. And we're still using those terms and, acting like it's spirits possessing our bodies, and there's going to be magical powers. It's a slippery slope. This is the problem I had with the Taoian, and the introducing the Taoist terms. It's that slippery slope, and it's just going to undo us. But the technique itself is there. I mean, Chinese martial arts has everything that we need, really. I'd still say cross-train, be enlightened. Your shui jiao will get better if you do some judo and some Western wrestling. Your striking will be better if you study some boxing and some Thai boxing. Your internal, quote-unquote, your qigong stuff will be better if you go out and look at what's going on in the yoga world. Go look out and look at what's going on in the CrossFit world. I know this is all blasphemy, right? People freak out. But if you really think about what I'm saying that we have a lot of value, but we have to package it in the correct way to keep it going moving forward. So I've been all over the place in my brain tonight, and I apologize for that, but hopefully I gave you a couple of good thoughts. This is David Ross, and thank you once again for tuning in.